A few weeks ago, I moved into a two-bedroom apartment in an old building. I was excited for a quieter life after a whirlwind year in the city. I loved the charm of the place. The walls were now filled with my art, and the street outside was nice. I thought I had made the right choice. On my first night alone, unpacking, I heard soft tapping against the wall. It was faint, like the pipes were groaning. I figured it was just the old plumbing and brushed it off. I sat down to focus on my projects instead, but a strange feeling nagged at me. As the nights passed, the tapping grew louder. It started to feel like a soft drumming. One night, while I worked late, I glanced outside. I thought I saw shadows moving outside, but I couldn't be sure. Chills ran down my spine, but maybe exhaustion was messing with me. On the third night, it got weirder. I heard whispers. I sat up straight, my heart racing. The sound seemed to come from nowhere, filling the room. I turned off my desk lamp to think, but the soft murmur continued. I wondered if my neighbors were fighting, but it sounded like they were inside my own walls. I got up to walk around my apartment, searching for the source. The tapping now followed me. I felt it push against me like it wanted to invade the quiet I craved. A cold chill settled around me, making me feel uneasy. I wanted to open the window for fresh air, but something stopped me. The next day, I buried myself in work. I chatted with the neighbors, and they all seemed normal. No sign of anything strange. Maybe it was just in my head. But that night, as I curled up with a book, I saw the shadows again. They were more distinct now, lurking at the corners of my vision. When I turned, they vanished. Each creak of the old building made me jump. I started leaving lights on everywhere, hoping to chase away the feelings of being watched. I told myself I was being ridiculous, but I couldn't shake the presence that felt always nearby. And then it happened on my final night in the apartment. I wandered to the window before bed. Ready to close the curtain, a whisper stopped me cold. It was clear, "Help me." My heart dropped. I turned sharply, but no one was there. The silence rushed back in, and the tapping started again, louder this time. I felt panic rise in my chest. I wanted to escape, to run from the walls that felt alive. But I stayed frozen. I couldn't leave. Now, I sit here telling you this, knowing I can't fully shake the feeling that something, or someone, is trapped in these walls. Something that won't let me settle, no matter how much I try. I spent the next day trying to convince myself that my imagination was running wild. I couldn't let myself get caught up in the whispers and shadows. Instead, I grabbed my camera and decided to capture my new space. Photography always helped clear my head. As the sun began to set, I set up my tripod by the window. The light was soft, giving a warm glow to the room. I focused on my paintings, and the way the colors danced under the fading light. Just as I clicked the shutter, a loud bang echoed through the apartment. My heart leaped into my throat. I spun around, convinced I'd find something, or someone, behind me. I found nothing. Just the empty space of my apartment. I swallowed hard, shaking my head as if that would shake away my fears. It's just the building settling, I told myself. I forced myself to move, but my spine tingled. I took a few more shots and stepped back to review them. That's when I noticed a shadow darting past the corner of the frame. It was quick, just a flicker, but I felt the panic rise again. I skipped to the shot I had just taken. I froze. The shadow was there, unmistakably. I couldn't shake it off. I grabbed my phone and went down to the lobby to talk with the building manager. I needed answers, something to rationalize all this. Little did I know, I was about to learn more than I wanted. "Rebecca, right?" She smiled when I approached her. "What's up?" I heard some noises. Tapping and whispers. I thought maybe I stopped myself. It sounded silly. Her smile faded. This building has its quirks, but some past tenants have mentioned things. What kind of things? I pressed, needing to know more. She glanced around, then leaned closer. There's an old story. About someone who lived here years ago. They say she lost her mind, that she could hear voices too. Is she still here? I asked, dread creeping into my gut. She never left, the manager said softly. Some say she is still looking for help. I didn't want to believe her. I headed back upstairs, my heart pounding. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. They were alive with history, dark history. The whispers echoed in my mind. As night fell, I decided to keep my lights on. I turned on the television for noise, hoping it would push back the silence. But the tapping returned, this time urgent, like fingers scraping against the wall. I jumped up, practically running to the wall. Please. Just leave me alone. I shouted, surprising myself with the force of my voice. Silence. But then, I heard it again. Help me. The voice was clearer now, more defined, almost desperate. I gasped, my breath shaky. I couldn't handle this. I needed to escape, but something held me in place. What was I dealing with? That's when I saw a figure standing at the end of the hall. Wispy and dark, just barely in focus. I blinked, and it vanished, leaving me with only the sound of my racing heart. I felt completely exposed, trapped in my own apartment. Was I truly alone? I spent the entire night replaying the manager's words in my mind. They echoed like a warning bell, wrapping around my thoughts, tightening slowly. I wasn't sure what I expected when I woke up, but I was definitely hoping for a fresh start, a moment of clarity. Instead, I was met with the same oppressive atmosphere that had invaded my dreams. The morning sunlight streamed through the window, casting long shadows across my living room. I figured a day out would help clear my head, so I grabbed my camera once again and decided to explore the nearby park. But even out in the sunlight, something felt off. It was like I was looking through a haze. I snapped picture after picture, yet every blink, I could still feel that dark figure at the edge of my thoughts, haunting me. By lunchtime, I was practically running back to my apartment, urgency pulling me home. The door creaked open, revealing the same mundane space, but it felt heavier. As I stepped inside, I noticed the silence. It wasn't the comforting kind, it was the kind that pressed in from all sides. I flipped on the lights, but the brightness did little to dispel the unease creeping in from the corners. I set my camera on the table and decided to review the photos from the day. Flicking through them, I paused at one of the park, a tree with branches extending like fingers against the blue sky. There, in the bottom corner, was the hazy outline of something. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. A shadow, not unlike the one I had seen in the hall. My heart raced again. I dismissed it as nothing and turned to grab a glass of water. That's when I heard a soft laugh, light and airy, drifting from the hallway. I froze, my hands trembling about the glass. I walked toward the sound, half anticipating to see someone there. The hallway was empty. Hello? I called out, my voice wobbly. No answer. I was bracing myself to turn back when the laughter came again. This time it was louder, clearer. It felt like it was teasing me, playing a game. I felt a chill spread through my chest, and before I could think, I stepped into the hallway. Who is there? I shouted, but there was no reply. The air was thick, almost electric. I hesitated, feeling the weight of the building's history pressing down once more. Then, with every ounce of courage I could muster, I pushed forward toward my bedroom. Just as I reached the door, I caught sight of something on the floor. A piece of paper, crumpled and half hidden beneath the edge of a rug. I picked it up, smoothing it out. It was a faded note, and the writing was shaky. Help me find it, it read. Before it's too late. My pulse quickened. What did it mean? I dropped the note like it burned my fingers, my mind racing. Was this a message from the tenant? Did she leave this for me, or was I losing my mind just like her? Just as I contemplated my next move, I felt a cold draft wash over me, and the door slammed shut behind me. Panic surged through me as I spun around. It wouldn't stop, the feeling that I was never truly alone. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder, cold as ice. I gasped and whipped around, but there was no one there. Just me, trembling in the half-light of the hallway. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. The note fluttered at the edge of my thoughts, joining the laughter that still echoed in my ears. My instincts screamed for me to leave, to seek safety outside these walls. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was meant to uncover something vital. I stepped back toward the hallway, inching my way to the small closet where the previous tenant had left boxes of belongings. Maybe something inside would explain the eerie atmosphere. As I swung the closet door open, a thick cloud of dust filled the air, forcing me to cough. I rummaged through the boxes, pushing aside old clothes and forgotten knickknacks. Nothing jumped out at me, just the remnants of someone else's life. Then I saw it, a small, tarnished key at the bottom of one of the boxes. I picked it up, feeling its weight in my palm. I couldn't see a lock it would open, but something about it felt important. Suddenly, I heard the soft laughter again, this time ringing clearer, as if it were in the same room with me. My heart thudded against my ribcage, and I let the key drop back into the box. Enough games! I shouted, my voice shaking. But the laughter continued, swirling around me, growing more intense. I pressed my back against the wall, acutely aware of the silence that followed the noise. It was as if the building was holding its breath, waiting for me to make the next move. I glanced at the hallway that stretched behind me, feeling the oppressive weight of it. I took a deep breath and stepped back, inching slowly toward the door of the bedroom. I needed to confront whatever was happening. Enough was enough. If there was something lurking in this space, I had to face it head-on. As I crossed the threshold, my gaze was drawn to the corner by the window. Shadows lingered there, dancing just beyond reach. The air grew colder, and I shivered. In that corner stood a figure, its outline vague yet almost familiar. My mind raced to process what I was seeing. Was that someone who looked like the former tenant? The tension built inside me. "What do you want?" I croaked out. All my courage felt flimsy against whatever presence was before me. The figure tilted its head, and I swore I could hear my name whispered, fragmented and soft, like a prayer. It raised its hand, beckoning me closer. I felt an overwhelming urge to comply, but something stopped me, a protective instinct flaring to life. Then everything froze as the figure began to dissolve into the shadows, its form melting away like wax left in the sun. My breath hitched, and I stumbled back. Where did it go? I couldn't lose sight of this, not now. I darted forward, my fingers brushing against the wall as I searched for any sign of where it had vanished. That's when I noticed a piece of paper stuck between the floorboards. My heart raced. Another note? I pulled it free, and my hands shook as I unfolded it. "Find the keyhole before it's too late," it read. I glanced at the rusty key lying forgotten in the closet. Something clicked inside me, a realization that maybe, just maybe, those laughter-filled moments were not random, but calling me forward. But to what? And what danger loomed just out of sight? With a heavy heart and a mind full of questions, I knew I had to find the keyhole before whatever waited in the shadows found me first. I stood there, frozen, the note still crumpled in my hands. Find the keyhole before it's too late. The words echoed in my mind, urging me to move. My instincts kicked in, pushing me back into the main room. I couldn't shake the feeling that something crucial was just out of reach. I hurriedly scanned the space, looking for any hint that might lead me to the keyhole. The walls were bare, marked by age and neglect, but perhaps there was something I hadn't noticed before. My gaze landed on the large, dust-covered mirror hanging opposite the window. It loomed like a forgotten guard, its surface clouded. I walked over, wiping my hand across the glass. Dust swirled away, revealing a dim reflection. I looked closer, examining the frame. Was that a slight indent on the edge? I pressed my finger against it, feeling for a latch or hidden mechanism. Nothing happened. Frustration mounted inside me, twisting my stomach. I needed to know what was happening here. I glanced again at the mirror, fighting an urge to look behind it. I was reluctant. What if I found something I didn't want to see? The laughter returned, now like a distant melody. I took a deep breath and pulled the mirror away from the wall. It felt heavier than I expected, and I stumbled slightly as the dust cloud exploded into the air. I braced myself against the wall. There had to be anything behind it. My body quivered, half expecting the presence to emerge from the shadows. Then, I caught sight of a small keyhole embedded in the wall, hidden by the mirror's placement. A rush of adrenaline surged through me. This had to be it. Clutching the tarnished key, I quickly repositioned the mirror. The keyhole was dark and inviting, the edges worn from use. I inserted the key slowly, my heart thudding louder each second. It slid in with ease, the metal feeling strangely warm. I turned it, and a soft click echoed through the room. The sound reverberated off the walls, breaking the haunted silence. For a moment, nothing happened. I felt a wave of disappointment wash over me. Had I been wrong? But as I pulled the key back out, the laughter grew, more persistent, wrapping around me like a living thing. Why? I shouted, my voice cracking as it bounced off the bare walls. The air crackled with energy, and then, suddenly, the light flickered. A glowing figure began to form in the center of the room. It was indistinct, shifting like smoke but with a solid center. My breath caught in my throat. The figure hung there for a suspended moment before coalescing into a familiar shape, someone I recognized. It was the former tenant. Her face was a mixture of sadness and urgency. She mouthed something, but no sound came out. Panic roared through me, I desperately wanted to understand. I needed her to tell me what I was supposed to do. Then the air shifted again. I could feel movement behind me as the shadows grew thicker, swirling like dark smoke converging on the figure. The former tenant's expression shifted to one of terror, and she pointed at me, her silent scream piercing through the air. Suddenly, the darkness surged forward, a dark wave rising behind her. The laughter erupted into chaos, drowning out all rational thought. I had to get out. The key was in my hand, and there was no time left to waste. I turned and fled from the room, the figure's warning echoing in my mind, find the keyhole before it's too late. But what did that even mean? My heart raced as I dashed down the hallway, shadows closing in behind me. Time was running out, and I had to uncover what lay ahead before it consumed me whole. I sprinted down the narrow hallway, the walls closing in as the shadows thrashed behind me like a living threat. My breath came in sharp gasps, and I could almost feel the dark fingers trying to reach for me. I turned a corner, bursting into the next room, which was an old library. Dusty books lined the shelves, their spines cracked and faded. I quickly locked the door behind me. The room felt bizarrely calm compared to the chaos I had just escaped. I leaned against the door, trying to gather my thoughts. I needed to focus. The former tenant's warning still echoed in my mind. But I was not safe yet. I scanned the library, my heart racing still. I searched for anything that could help me understand. As my eyes moved over the shelves, something glinted faintly beneath the window. I approached it cautiously, curiosity battling with fear. Bending down, I uncovered a small brass medallion, its surface smooth and cool to the touch. I flipped it over to find an intricate design etched on one side. It was a key symbol, but not the same as the one I had just used. I pocketed it, wondering if it could lead me to another clue. Suddenly, I heard a soft thud from behind me. The hairs on my neck stood on end. I turned, half expecting to see the glowing figure again or something worse. Instead, I was met with an empty room. But the air felt heavier, charged with a tension I couldn't ignore. In search of a distraction, I hurried back to the shelves, running my fingers along the spines of the books. Most were unreadable, their titles long since erased. But then, my fingers brushed against something different. I pulled it out, an old leather-bound journal that smelled of mildew and despair. I opened it, the pages brittle and yellowed. Scrawled handwriting filled the space, detailing the life of the former tenant. At first, it seemed ordinary, but then I stumbled upon something chilling. She wrote about voices. Whispers that guided her, and a keyhole she discovered in the very room I had just fled. I flipped to a different page, and my heart sank. There was a drawing of a shadowy figure behind the keyhole, its face obscured. I slammed the journal shut, nausea rising in my throat. The realization hit me hard, whatever I was up against was not a one-time encounter. It was a cycle. Just then, the door rattled violently, pulling me out of my thoughts. Panic surged through me. I glanced around the room, there was nowhere to hide. The shadows seemed to dance, taunting me with their presence. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But I couldn't leave empty-handed. I needed to understand this place. I had to find the next keyhole before it was too late. Turning my back to the door, I looked for anything more that could tell me about that shadowy figure. In my frantic search, I failed to notice that the laughter had returned, echoing softly from somewhere deep within the walls. That sound felt like frost creeping down my spine. Someone wasn't just in the house, they were in my head. I barely had time to process this when the door burst open, and I faced the darkness head-on. The darkness seemed to flood the room, swallowing every fragment of light. I stood frozen, heart racing. Whatever had burst through the door was more than just a shadow, it felt like a presence, a knot of energy that thrummed in the air. I braced myself, expecting something to lunge at me, but the silence stretched out, thick and unsettling. Then, I saw it. A flicker of movement from the corner of my eye. I turned my head sharply, staring deep into the shadows. There was something there, a shape, shifting and merging with the darkness. An outline of a figure? I couldn't tell. It felt like my mind was betraying me, twisting what I saw. I squinted, urging my mind to make sense of it. But just as quickly, the shape flickered again and vanished. I felt dizzy, like the very air around me was conspiring to trap me. My gut told me to run, but where could I go? The library was on the verge of being a trap rather than a refuge. I glanced back at the door, hoping to find an escape route. That's when I noticed something odd, a small keyhole in the wall beside the window. Unlike the one I had fled from, this one was more intricate, shaped like a puzzle piece. A rush of hope surged through me. Could this be connected to the medallion? I pulled the brass medallion from my pocket and studied it under the thin beam of moonlight seeping through the dust-covered window. Should I try it? My instincts fought with my curiosity. But deep down, I felt I was running out of time. The laughter echoed again, sharper this time, like tiny bells ringing in the distance. It sent chills up my spine. I knew I had to act quickly before whatever had come in could find me. I marched toward the wall, desperation fueling my steps. The medallion felt warm against my palm, as if alive. I knelt before the keyhole, heart racing. I slid the medallion into place. It fit snugly, but nothing happened. My breath quickened, I was so close. I turned it, and a low grinding noise echoed through the room. The walls seemed to shudder, and I tightened my grip. Suddenly, the darkness pulsed, a thick wave sweeping through the room. I yanked the medallion out, but it felt like my hand was caught in a vice. The laughter crescendoed, swirling around me. Then there was silence. The oppressive air vanished as quickly as it had come. I took a trembling breath, unsure if I could trust the moment. The darkness still lingered, but the figure had retreated. I looked back at the wall. To my shock, the keyhole began to glow, faintly at first, then more intensely. A soft illumination poured from it, revealing part of a hidden message etched into the wood around it. "Find the others." My heart sank. Others? How many were there? Was I too late? With a sense of urgency building in my chest, I realized there were more secrets to uncover. And time was running out. I needed to find those keys, whatever they might be, before the shadows returned. The laughter faded into a whisper, and in that moment, I heard a voice for the first time, cold and clear. "You have to unlock them all." Chills raced down my spine. I was not alone. Not just in this house, but in something far larger. I pressed my ear against the wall, listening for any sign of movement. The library had gone eerily quiet, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there, waiting. I glanced at the glowing keyhole again, my mind racing with possibilities. What did "find the others" really mean? From the corner of my eye, I noticed the edges of a dusty book on the floor, a thick tome that looked out of place among the lighter volumes. I hesitated but couldn't ignore the pull of curiosity. Moving slowly, I reached for the book, my fingers brushing against its worn leather cover. As I opened it, a cloud of dust erupted into the air, making me cough. The pages were yellowed and contained strange drawings and symbols. I flipped through them, my heart pounding as I deciphered bits of text. They spoke of a ritual, keys that unlocked ancient powers, and darkness that thrived on fear. "Great," I muttered under my breath. As if my situation wasn't dire enough, I had stumbled upon something that suggested this darkness had been here before. I flipped to another page, and there was a depiction of a medallion similar to mine, leading me further down a rabbit hole of unease. That's when I heard it again. Laughter, but this time it felt closer, more intimate, like it was right behind me. I spun around, but the shadows clung to the corners, refusing to reveal their secrets. My instincts screamed at me to keep moving, to act. Everything in the library felt like it was closing in, and I hurried back to the wall with the keyhole. I scooped up the medallion from the floor and placed it back into the hole. This time, I twisted it harder. The grinding noise returned, louder, vibrating through the wooden structure. Suddenly, the floorboards creaked alarmingly, and I stumbled back as a section of the wall clicked open. Dust billowed out, revealing a hidden compartment. I gasped, heart racing at the sight before me. A small, tarnished key hung from a worn leather strap, glinting in the darkness. I reached for it, but hesitated. What if it led to something worse? Unraveling these layers felt dangerous, like pulling threads from a tightly woven fabric. But I remembered the voice. I had to unlock them all. When I grabbed the key, a jolt of cold energy shot through me, almost forcing me to drop it. My body felt heavy, every part of me urging to toss it back, but I held it tight. I knew I had to confront whatever I was dealing with. With the key in hand, I turned my attention to the other end of the library. Shadows danced along the walls, and the laughter near my ear grew louder, almost gleeful. I edged toward the far shelf, its wooden surface splintered and dark. A small door was tucked between the shelves, almost hidden. I approached it slowly, aware that I could stumble into something far worse than I imagined. As I raised the key toward the lock, a voice whispered, "You have one chance. Use it wisely." I hesitated for a split second, then pushed the key into the lock. The instant I turned it, the shadows dissolved into a swirling mass, and just as I opened the door, something struck my back with a force that knocked me off my feet. Everything turned to chaos. I hit the floor hard, the impact knocking the wind out of me. My heart raced. I felt disoriented, tangled in confusion and fear. I wanted to get up, to escape whatever might come next, but my body refused to cooperate. As I lay there, I heard the door creak open wider, the shadows spilling out into the library, swirling around me like tendrils. I scrambled to my feet, every instinct screaming at me to run. But I wasn't ready to just leave. The key, the book, the laughter, it all tied together somehow. I had to confront it. I glanced at the door, now fully ajar. The darkness inside beckoned, but something in me hesitated. I could hear faint whispers, words slithering in and out of understanding. As I stepped closer, the air thickened around me, heavy and cold. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. A girl, no older than me, her eyes wide and frantic. I froze, equal parts relief and fear. I wasn't alone. "Help me!" she gasped, her voice trembling. "It's coming." Before I could respond, the laughter rang out again, this time louder and more mocking. I turned quickly, scanning the library for the source, my heart pounding in my chest. The darkness curled and twisted along the walls, almost alive. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Doesn't matter," she shouted. "We have to get out. It wants us." With adrenaline pumping through my veins, I grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. "I have a key. Maybe it can help." We made it through the threshold, the shadows retreating as we stepped inside. It was dark, but gradually shapes began to form around us. Shelves lined the walls, filled with more of the strange books I had discovered earlier. This place felt like a library infinite and wrong. There was a table in the center, covered with various objects, tarnished keys, dusty scrolls, and odd-looking medallions. It was like another world inside this room. A sense of urgency hung in the air as I realized what we had stumbled upon. "What is this place?" I murmured, not expecting an answer. The girl shook her head, her breaths coming in short, anxious gasps. "I don't know. I was looking for something. And then it got me." "Got you?" I asked, my heart racing. The laughter came closer, echoing off the walls. "I can feel it, like it's waiting, watching," she replied, her face pale. Then something shifted behind us. A shadow darted, and the room felt colder. My skin prickled with dread as I sensed the presence lurking just out of sight. "That's it," she shouted, panic creeping into her voice. "We need to find the others, or we won't make it out." I nodded, trying to focus. She had to be right, something connected us, something beyond fear. But where were the others? Before I could contemplate further, a flicker of light caught my attention. At the back of the room, there was another door, illuminated by the faint glow of the keyhole. My heart raced again. Was it another chance or just deeper trouble? "Let us go," I urged, moving toward the light, the girl following closely behind, uncertainty pushing us forward. As I reached the door, a shiver ran down my spine, and the laughter roared again louder, more insistent. With a trembling hand, I pushed open the door, hoping for salvation but sensing only danger. What lay beyond remained a mystery, but something in me knew we were on the brink of uncovering dark secrets. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow room dimly lit by flickering candles scattered on a long table. This one felt different, almost sacred. Intricately painted symbols adorned the walls, depicting scenes of struggle and loss, and at the center of it all lay what looked like an altar, covered with more keys, an array of tarnished copper, brass, and silver, each with a unique design. "Are those?" the girl gasped, stepping closer, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. "Keys," I replied, cautiously taking a few steps inside, drawn by the peculiar energy that hummed in the air. "But to what?" Just as I spoke, the shadows around us coalesced, swirling like a storm about to break. The laughter, unsettling and mocking, echoed through the chamber, and the air thickened as if something was about to be unleashed. "We should go back," she urged, her eyes wide with terror. "This feels wrong. But something anchored me here. Perhaps it was the way the sight of those keys called out to me, or maybe it was the urgency of the moment. Whatever it was, I was determined to face it. "Wait," I said, glancing around the altar. "What if we find one that matches the medallion? It might lead us to the others." The girl nodded, swallowing hard as she moved to stand beside me. We scanned the various keys, each glinting in the dim light, whispering stories of their own. I reached out slowly, tracing my fingers along their designs. The laughter surged again, now more frantic. It felt like a warning. "Do you feel that?" she whispered anxiously. "It seems angry." I nodded, my pulse quickening as I found a key that mirrored the patterns of the medallion I had used earlier. It was silver, cool to the touch, and felt almost alive in my hand. I took a deep breath, instinctively knowing this key would take us further into whatever we were unraveling. "This might be it," I said, glancing back at her, who now watched me with cautious hope. Before I could hesitate, I turned and faced the far wall where a gleaming lock awaited. The air grew heavier, charged with a pending reckoning. As I inserted the key and turned it, the laughter transformed into a chorus of soft whispers, almost pleading. With a final click, the wall shifted, revealing a passageway. The shadows drew back, as if they feared what came next. "Should we?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yeah," I breathed, stepping forward. "We have to." We moved into the passage, the darkness surrounding us like a shroud. Each step felt monumental yet perilous, and I half expected to be consumed by the very shadows we had been fleeing. The passageway narrowed, twisting and turning into unknown depths. The laughter faded, but the whispers grew louder again, enveloping us in a whirlwind of sounds. Fragments of conversations, cries for help, and sorrowful stories echoed against the stone walls. "Is this?" The girl's voice shook. "Is it leading us somewhere?" "Maybe," I replied, feeling a pull toward the end of the passage that felt oddly definitive. Then, I saw it. Another door at the end, more ornate than the last, with intricate carvings winding around the frame. I could sense an energy radiating from it, an intensity that demanded attention. As we reached it, I glanced back at her. "Whatever comes next, we face it together," I said, forcing courage into my tone. She nodded, determination etched on her face. We ushered toward the door, and I placed my hand against the cold surface, taking in the designs. Would this connection finally unlock the truth? Could it free us, or would it ensnare us even deeper? With a shared breath, I pushed the door open. Beyond it lay a vast cavern, illuminated by an ethereal light that seemed to pulse with life. Shadows shifted and danced along the walls, flickering like ancient spirits caught in time. At the center of the cavern, numerous figures moved, some hazy, some familiar. Their faces were twisted in expressions of anguish, calling out with silent pleas that rippled through the air. But amongst them, I spotted the former tenant, her eyes searching for something. "Help me," her lips mouthed, turmoil radiating from her presence. The girl clutched my arm, whispering, "They need us, but how?" I scanned the cavern and suddenly realized that scattered around were various keyholes mirroring the keys we had found earlier. In that moment, it clicked. We needed to unlock them all. Each would release a soul trapped within these walls. But would releasing them come at a cost? "Grab a key!" I shouted, urgency fueling me. "We have to unlock them." The shadows writhed, and the whispers crescendoed, urgent yet terrifying. I dashed to the closest keyhole, trembling with anticipation as I pulled the silver key from my pocket. "No. It's not safe," the girl protested. But it was too late. I inserted the key, a surge of energy sparking through me. As I turned it, the darkness erupted, the energies clashed like a storm. "Let them go!" I yelled, grounding myself, feeling the strength of their pain but also their desperate need for release. The cavern quaked, shadows swirling violently. A flash of light erupted as the first keyhole unlocked, the figure of the former tenant surging forward, a look of peace flooding her face as she dissolved into the light, free at last. The chaos erupted harder, shadows rampant, but numerous keys and doorways beckoned. Each one unlocked a different part of this unraveling truth. With each release, more souls surged toward solace, their faces transformed from anguished despair to radiant freedom. Again and again, I moved from keyhole to keyhole, unraveling the connections as the girl followed, each unlocked spirit illuminating the space, casting away the shadows that had once ruled. But I still felt it, the deeper, creeping presence. It hadn't retreated. It was becoming agitated, sensing its grip slipping away. "Stay close," I commanded, our hands clasped together as we pressed on, determination pushing us through the increasingly chaotic energy. We just had to hold on a little longer. Each key unlocked another. Each soul released cleared the growing darkness. But as the final key rattled in my hand, I could feel the walls trembling like they were alive, the malevolent presence looming just beyond. The last key slipped into place, and with a final desperate twist, I unlocked the last door, praying it would be the release we needed. A thunderous crash echoed through the cavern as a blinding light erupted, piercing through all the remnants of shadows. But in that instant, with the fear and urgency peaking, I caught sight of it, a mass of darkness surging forward, attempting to consume the light and re-establish its grip. I screamed, "No! Not again!" But the light surrounded me, and I felt the pulse of the keys in my hands, the energy of the released souls fueling it, pushing back against the dark. And then I was swept away. The world shifted. I lost all sense of time or space, floating in brilliance as darkness withdrew, finally collapsing in on itself. I woke abruptly, gasping, the old building's walls surrounding me. My apartment loomed before me, and I was alone yet somehow different. I turned, spotting the now silent hallway, the shadows receding like whispers into the night. Could it have all been just a dream? Or had I really confronted those depths? Silence wrapped around me, a sure, heavy embrace. As I gathered myself, moments from the encounter melded into lingering questions. I thought of the girl, the former tenant, and the souls that longed for escape. I could still feel the resonance of their pain and hope. Could it always be this way? Would something watch and wait in the shadows of the building? I couldn't erase that unease that hid beneath the surface, neither could I shake the mysteries left unanswered. In an attempt at closure, I moved toward the window, the city outside glimmering with life. Just before the soft hues of dawn washed over in tranquility, I caught a flicker of movement, a shadow racing along the edge of my vision. And there it sat, a small brass medallion resting quietly on my windowsill, glinting with an eerie light. I didn't know where it had come from, or what it meant, but I had a feeling this wouldn't be the end after all. I had escaped, yes, but something still lingered, an unanswered thread in the fabric of my reality. And I wasn't sure it would ever be truly finished.